It's time now for the Sports Objective Podcast. No talking heads, just guys who love sports. Here's Dave Richmond.
Welcome into the Sports Objective Podcast. It's going to be a great show. I feel it. We have Kyle from LaGrange Barber. What's up, man?
What's going on, Dave?
Another day, another night with you guys. Sounds good to me. We got Bubba Rosenbaum in the western part of the state. How are you, sir?
Doing well. 3.5 weeks to opening day. Fired up.
I'll tell you what, guys. I wish that I could beam you up, Bubba, and beam you up, Kyle. We don't have Scotty with us anymore, but we could beam him up, I guess, from Maryland. But anyway.
No thanks.
No thanks? All right, never mind. Sorry, Pirate Nation. Seriously, the practices are just fantastic. And you know what's funny is we have a coach now who doesn't say the practices are good. But you know what? They are good because it's like real football again. It's the physicality on that field is just absolutely amazing. It's like old school football, and those guys are seeing those older. I want to tell you this that I love about Coach Houston. He don't care if you're a freshman or a senior. He don't care if you were a starter last year. He's going to put the best players out there. Plus, he's going to put the best players out there that fit his system and the ones that respect him, and they're playing their hearts out. And those older players got a message because the younger guys don't know any better, and they're going by what Coach Houston's saying. So the older guys have had no choice but to rise to the occasion.
Yeah, that really jumped out about his comments as far as the older guys succumbing to the heat. But it seems like things have improved in that regard since then.
And they're used to Montgomery letting them be a pro style practice where if you're feeling a little things are not going well for you that day, instead of pushing through it, pulling through it, you tap out and you go halfway. And that's why we had as he talks about, we can't have that because that's when Kyle, he's talking about those busted plays. We've seen many of those X plays, busted plays, big yardage gainers, whatever you want to call it, and that kills us many times in the Montgomery area.
Yeah, obviously on defense, if you're not tackling, wrapping up, hitting in practice, being physical, you're not going to be able to make the plays in the game. And when you miss a tackle, there goes a big play. Instead of having a 5-yard gain or a 2-yard gain, suddenly it's a 70-yard gain. And most of the time that's just from one tackle being missed. And, when you're not tackling in practice, you're not being physical, you ain't going to be able to do it on game day. And Coach Houston is changing that one practice at a time.
And it's, Bubba, these guys are going to be in tremendous shape. Big John Williams is tremendous. And we've got, speaking of tremendous, Bubba, let's tell about the two guests before we get deep into our roundtable.
Yeah, our first guest that we'll catch up with is Mark Lindsay, our good friend with Pirate Illustrated, our Rivals.com affiliate. And so we'll catch up with him, talk a little Pirate football, and then we'll also catch up with the first ever Director of Sports Nutrition, and that is, of course, Kristina Parrish. She was an excellent interview. I know Pirate Nation is going to really enjoy hearing from her because she hasn't been heard from much since she's been hired.
And later on, before we end up the show, we'll also give more takes about our football experience we think so far. Practice number 4, fall camp. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. We're still going to talk some football and everything, but we had some little tidbits we're going to talk about, right, Bubba?
Right. We'll bring you up to date some of the most current information regarding the 2020 class.
Hey, Bubba, I know that we had a great time with Mark Lindsay over the weekend. He's a good friend, and we talked about an interview about recruiting, and we talk about for basketball, football, his thoughts on the camp. And let's go to the interview with Mark right now. Very happy to have back on the show one of my friends, certainly in the pirate media, if you will, from PirateIllustrated.com, Rivals.com network. Of course, I'm talking about Mark Lindsay. Mark, man, how you doing?
Fantastic, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for helping out with our audio for the second practice. I just wanted to, I guess that's where we need to start the interview. What do you think about fall practice so far with the Pirates? You've been there, you're there every single day.
From what I can see so far, it's a very intense camp going on. There's a new level of expectation, it seems like. The coach, Mike Houston has brought in a high level of intensity, brings back some guys that we're familiar with, and guys like Donnie Kirkpatrick and Steve Shankwaller, good defensive coordinator, and Bob Trott. And the guys are working out really hard right now. They seem to do better on day 2 than they did on day 1. They had a couple of guys that had some issues with the heat. Wasn't quite as hot today, and hopefully they can get themselves in shape and get ready for NC State coming up on August 31st.
Yeah, Mark, one of the things that yesterday and then listening to audio again that you get sent to us, appreciate it, is the fact that Mike Houston is not going to accept less than your best. And he's a real football coach. And the days of, like you said like yesterday, of tapping out and, playing a play here and there and not giving it you 100%, those days are over. And I'm just curious, in your opinion, do you think we're going to see a number of players that we may lose, even some ones that we would be shocked and hurt to lose because of the fact of they're just not giving it their best and there's a new sheriff in town?
Well, I hope not. I can't imagine who they might be if that does happen. I guess that could happen in any situation, and I wouldn't be surprised if it does. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. But he's definitely not going to mess around with them. He made a point yesterday to say that there's not going to be a lot of guys that are sitting out because of the heat and then expecting to play come game day. So he said they did a better job today of fighting through the heat, even with some cramping going on with some of the guys on the offensive line, where he had some concerns there yesterday, conditioning-wise, and they seemed to all fight through it today much better on Saturday, and he came out with a much better feeling after practice this morning. So hopefully they can continue to move forward from here. He did a lot to build in a lot of the system over the course of the spring, and then during the voluntary workouts during the summer, they continue to add on to that. So they come in with a base of knowledge that should serve them well, in a first-year type situation with East Carolina as they begin to try to transition from the old coach to the new coach.
And I know always that's a tough situation, no matter what. If a coach leaves, fires, retires, whatever the case may be, that's never going to be easy. But I think another thing, Mark, is I know that they may not be used to the intensity, like you were talking about, the physicality of practice, because Montgomery seemed to be more, and you were there all 3 years. I was there just in 28 the last season with Montgomery, but it just seemed like it was more of a pro-style practice. And I know you don't want to get players hurt, but you practice the way you play, and it just seems like now, for Pirate fans listening right now, I think that they should be certainly optimistic about the future of this program when you see a guy that's more old school. He's won everywhere he's been, and you look at now, he's bringing that same mentality, the mindset. The coaches are all together on knowing what he expects because they were already, pretty much all of them were with him. And I'm just really excited about what I've seen. I think even the mood of those of us in the media covering the Pirates are even better. It's a lot more cheerful and happy and people excited versus kind of like ho-hum and we're just there because we have to be there.
Well, it's definitely a tighter ship than before. Even the press has to sign in before they come in every day, and we won't be talking to the players very much during this camp at all, except for on media day and after the scrimmages. It seems like maybe 3 or 4 times the entire camp, which is definitely a change from any of the systems that I've gone through in my time at East Carolina, whether it be under Skip Holtz or Ruffin McNeil or Scotty Montgomery or any of them so far. So it's definitely different, but the guy has a history of winning. Houston has won a lot of ball games. He's won over 80 ball games, and he's only lost 20-some games in his entire career. And it was pretty much the same when he was in high school, coaching in high school too. So there's a method to the madness, I guess, and we're going to find out how it all works out. It may take a year or so to get things underway, but I would imagine we'll probably see at least some improvement here in the first 12 games of his new era here at East Carolina.
And it's very exciting, Mark, when you look at the schedule. We don't have to go into that, but I've told the guys it looks like there's a chance that we could win 3 to 4 ball games in the first month. I mean, who would ever think, after what we've been through, only winning 9 games the last 3 years, that the win total could be matched or beaten in the first month of what we've experienced with Scotty Montgomery for 3 seasons.
It certainly has a chance to do much better, and the schedule won't be quite as tough as it has been in the past too, in all fairness to some of the other coaches. And that should serve them well in terms of win-loss. They have a chance to possibly get to 6 wins this year. If not more, they'll have to play well to do so. And, they start out with a pretty tough opponent in NC State, so that'll be a pretty good barometer right off the bat.
And when they were coaches last year, James Madison, they had that game. They had a chance to win that game and let it slip in the fourth quarter. State was able to pull it out. I don't think it's going to be 58-3. And even if East Carolina loses the game, I think it's going to be extremely competitive. I think you're going to see guys play their hearts out because they know these coaches mean business. They know that you can't get away with stuff anymore. Like I said just a little bit ago, there's a new sheriff in town. He's the real deal. He's a guy that's going to take East Carolina. And like you said, I want people to be careful. It's nice to be optimistic like we are, but I think we need to be patient with this coaching staff because they need to have when people said under Montgomery, he needed to get a chance to get his players in there. Well, that's true, but also this particular case, the system, everything is different under these coaches. So I'm hoping folks will be patient with Houston because we definitely got not only is he a good coach, but we got the right fit, I think, for our school.
What's interesting about that is I can't decide who's going to be more impatient, whether it's going to be the fans or the coaching staff itself. Because
good point.
They're ready to go right now, and I don't think they want a waiting period in between. So it should be interesting to say the least. At least we'll go in there with our quarterback able to play. And that always makes a big difference when you go into Raleigh and you don't have Holt Nailers ready to go and your coach has already been released and you're in a
2 days before the game. Remember, it was 2 days before that game.
Yeah, that was definitely an anomaly. So it should be more competitive this go around for sure.
And more than just a field goal to I pray to God and not 58-3. Let's talk about that was awful. Let's talk about. Obviously, you're a recruiting expert, and I know we'll talk a little bit about basketball. Hard to believe we're talking about basketball in August, but we'll talk about that before we let you go. But I wanted to talk a good few minutes or so on football, and just I want to get your feel because you're the expert. I'm not. Because of you and guys like you, I've just started following recruiting more, so I'm kind of a newcomer to the recruiting as far as paying attention to it. I used to not pay attention to it at all, to be honest. Until a few years ago. Can you talk about the football recruiting first? And I want to get your impression of what you think about, obviously they did a nice job of keeping a lot of those guys in the 2019 class intact, so the new coaching staff didn't have a lot of turnaround there. And then they had to recruit the players they already had at East Carolina, and then now they're out. This is really the first recruiting class that's really their own.
They did well last year to retain everything they already had on the list for the most part. They've come in really strong this year. They've landed 14 guys since June, and right now they have a total of 19 guys on the board. They're ranked 49th in the nation currently with Rivals.com, and that's a fluctuating situation as other teams get recruits and they land recruits of their own. Then the ranking changes every day, but this ranking has been up as high as 45. Which is the highest, ranking for any service in the nation right now at 49 currently. They have 19 guys on the board right now. So far, they've landed both quarterbacks that they wanted to land in 4-star Mason Garcia out of Myrtle Beach at 6'4", 215, and Taji Hudson out of Cedartown, Georgia, who's a 6'4", 195, 3-star, more of a running quarterback who could also potentially be converted to a receiver position if he doesn't end up playing quarterback. But both of those guys are the 2 guys that you really wanted to get. And to land one of them early and then turn right around and land the other one was a bit of a surprise to me. There's a lot of 3-stars on this board, a lot of good players Shane Calhoun, 6'3" at 230 at tight end. They just landed a few days ago. Is going to be a good one. There's guys on here like Tyler Savage at wide receiver, 6'3", 220. It's a bigger brand of receiver overall than they've traditionally brought in here as a group. Guys like Jason Romero at defensive end out of Laurinburg, 6'5", 240-pound guy, is a 3-star. Should come in and do some damage almost immediately. Other guys that I like on this list include a defensive back out of Berwick, Pennsylvania, Tegan Wilk at 5'10", 180, can just jump out of the roof, and great cover defensive back, and also can hit. These are guys that are going to come in and do some damage for sure. Then there are other guys like C.J. Crump, the defensive back out of Greensboro, 6 foot, good tall defensive backs like Crump, and Eric Doctor out of Orlando, Florida, who's another 3-star Rivals.com product. At 6 feet, 217, these are good sized defensive backs. And then you bring in a guy like Jaquez Powell, a defensive tackle out of Pine Tops at 6'4", 310 pounds. That's going to be a player that I think that you need to keep an eye on in the immediate future. He may do some damage pretty early in the going. So, and you've got another guy that I like too, Nasser Clerk out of Irvington, New Jersey, who's a 6'2", 170-pound defensive back that was pretty highly sought after. Had a number of good offers from places like Cincinnati and Syracuse and Buffalo and East Carolina. So overall, I think this is a good class, and if they continue to land guys that are ranked products, this has a chance to be one of the higher ranked classes that East Carolina has had in some time.
Well, that was one of the questions I had for you. Is that I'm really happy to hear. My gosh, for Rivals to have us at 49th, that's I know people may say 49th. Obviously, me and Mark and a lot of us at East Carolina that have been to East Carolina, we graduated fans, know we would love for us to be number one. We know that's probably chances that may not happen, but considering where we were with the program and how well they've recruited, 49th is great right now.
Well, when you have a Power 5 of about 60 teams, and you're
right.
in 49th right now in what is a middle tier conference. It's not. I don't think it's a lower tier conference like Conference USA is now, or the Sun Belt,
right.
or the WAC, or some of those conferences. It's kind of in the middle. So to be anywhere under 50 right now at this point in the proceedings is really good. And plus, East Carolina on our particular list with Rivals, we have 2 guys that haven't even received a ranking at all yet. If they had even a 2-star ranking right now, you would be probably closer to about 45, 43 at the moment. So anything under 50 like this is really good for East Carolina. And a lot of this is pretty subjective too.
Right.
The household names are definitely going to be up there, to be sure, and they have obviously a good chance to land a lot of the guys in the given. So it's never an easy sell, but with the new facilities that they put together at East Carolina and all of the new growth on campus and all the new renovations with the dorms and the
right.
new weight facility and the new locker room facility and the new press facility, brand new AstroTurf field at Height Field, it makes for what looks like almost a brand new situation when a kid comes on campus at East Carolina. So things are looking up at the moment when everyone's pretty optimistic.
How can you? I know that we don't have a lot of time, but can you talk about? People ask me this question all the time, and I tell them that a person like you is the expert, not me. Can you give us like a thumbnail sketch of? I know you said subjective, but how does a guy? What is the process for someone? How they get a 5-star, 3-star, 2-star, 4-star? How does that equate? How do you do that?
Well, a lot of that has to do with they won't say that that's the case, but a lot of it has to do with offers. And
okay.
So if a kid has offers from Clemson and Alabama and Penn State and Florida State and some of the various schools, Tennessee and Ole Miss and schools like that, then they're liable to have a little bit higher ranking and they're liable to have more offers. than some of the other guys that don't. And then, and the very, very, very top at the 5-star level, there aren't as many of those. And those guys usually have a boatload of offers.
Like 40 or 50 offers, right?
Yeah, and there's a reason that they do. And they see them at these camps, whether it be with Rivals or with the other network. They see them at camps, and they kind of, these guys come in, built like they're sophomores and juniors before they ever get on campus. And that's another thing. So it all has a lot to do with it. Anyone that gets a 3-star level, at least if you're landing 3 stars and a few 4 stars at East Carolina's level, you're doing very well. Some of these guys politically might land a 4-star if they had chosen to go to Alabama or Penn State.
So that's pretty much what I thought. And again, it sounds like there's no real rhyme or reason. It's kind of like in some respects, I hate to cheapen this by saying it, but it sounds like from the outsider looking in, it's kind of like a popularity contest.
Well, they do get evaluated. They do get evaluated at these national camps, and that goes a long way towards it too. But a lot of it is borne out in the offers that they have as well.
All right, let's talk about. I know before we let you go, I wanted to talk about. I can't believe that you and I are talking about basketball, and now we're in the month of August. Usually, I'd probably be talking to you basketball, maybe September, October, a little bit about it, kind of hinting around because of we'd be so focused on football. But that's the testament of Joe Dooley. Can you talk about? There's been a revamp, and I know that we don't have a lot of time, but I know that you have the list there. Can you talk about? I guess we could talk about players that have gone and left the program, and there was over I think it was about a dozen players that are out of the program or somewhere around there, but we've got it's almost like a pro team now because we've got all the new names.
Well, I've never seen that happen before. Let me say that first. I've never seen 12 guys unloaded in one go-round, but they do have 2 guys returning in Jaden Gardner and Seth Leday. Both of those are proven commodities coming back. Both of them are at 6'7". Jaden was one of the better players in the league last year, and Seth, before the year was out, proved that he was one as well. They brought in a number of good players, including 3 centers that are right around 7 foot, and Charles Coleman and Luigi Dubois and Edra Luster. And all those guys are 7 foot, 6'10", 6'11" type guys. Charles Coleman was set to go to Wake Forest. And Duke was even looking at him and trying to get him to come there right as he got ready to commit to East Carolina. So that's a good get for Joe Dooley. Other guys on this group that I like Tremont Robinson White at guard. I think he's going to be good. Logan Curtis, another guard at 6'3", 195, is a good player. Do you have an abundance of big guys around the wing, 6'6", 6'7" type guys like J.J. Miles, Fatuma Baruti, guys like that who are going to come in and do some damage. Samson Strickland at 6'5", 220. This is a bigger brand of cat on the perimeter. Miles James is another one. So this could be a good-looking group of basketball players. Certainly they have not been here to experience negativity that the prior teams have had. So they have a chance to do much better from the outset.
And I'll just say this, and I'll make a generic statement, but one of the things that Dooley's not going to put up with is, halfway in the classroom, if you will, kind of slack there. And one of the things that's disappointing for the program has certainly been some off-the-court things, and I won't say what that is and who the people are out of respect to Coach Dooley. But he inherited a little bit, I wouldn't say it's a big mess, but maybe some people would say it's a big mess when it comes to grades off the court stuff. But the good news is, like you've seen before, that many players off the roster, but the number of players that we had looks like a good recruiting class coming in. You give this, speaking of giving Coach time, you give Coach Dooley, this will only be his second year, give him 4 years, and you can see Coach Dooley and the Pirates potentially, certainly in the NIT, but maybe even this tournament.
Well, it will be interesting to see what happens. They certainly have the size coming off the bus. They're going to definitely look the part.
Right.
And, having the whole summer to try to put together some chemistry with a lot of these guys that are coming in will go a long way for them. They've got the entire fall to get better as well. It should be interesting to see how the returning guys, where they fit in with this group that's coming in, and it it could be a very deep group. He could be 9-10 deep with this group. So that's something that we've not experienced at East Carolina in some time. There's reason for optimism, and you just have to wait and see what happens. This is a tough league that they play in the American Athletic Conference, but East Carolina should make a quantum leap from where they were before.
It definitely can't hurt, my friend. Well, Mark, before we let you go, I'm a member. I want the folks to enjoy your content. You do an excellent job, and I appreciate, obviously, that you're a Pirate, and you definitely pour your heart out into your work. Can you tell folks how they can subscribe and check out PirateIllustrated.com? I tell you what, folks, you need to do it because you can never get enough Pirate stuff, and Mark does an excellent job. He's always there. He's always been good to me, so I want to give you a chance to plug the site and Rivals.
Well, I appreciate that. You can just log into eastcarolina.rivals.com, and you can sign up there for a subscription. And, we keep up with recruiting all year long and with the teams, and been doing this since 2005. So it's getting to be kind of a long time now, kind of one of the older old-timers. But we appreciate the support that we receive from the Pirate community, and we welcome anybody new who wants to come by and jump in the fray.
Sounds good, Mark. Thanks for your time, and certainly I appreciate the friendship. Appreciate all that you've been very good to me and the podcast for many different reasons, and look forward to covering the Pirates with you. I think we're going to have a very exciting year coming with all the sports.
Thanks, Dave. We'll talk again soon.
Appreciate our good buddy Mark Lindsay, who works hard with Rivals.com. It's PirateIllustrated.com. If you get a chance, folks, check that out. We have a lot of great friends in the media. By the way, guys, I want to mention a tidbit quickly, and then we're going to go back into Bubba has information on the 2020 class and a breakdown, which is really cool. But one of the great things about I was talking to Kyle and Bubba folks off the air night before last about the very fact of that people don't realize how much East Carolina, how much coverage that the Pirates get. And most teams in America and around the country don't get coverage we get as far as Pirate Nation and ECU. And I just wanted to, not to toot our own horn, obviously, we have the only podcast dedicated to East Carolina sports, oh, by the way. And we have over 50,000 listens, by the way, all the time, right, Bubba?
Also, that's correct.
We have a lot of great radio stations. We have TV stations, the internet, you name it. We've got people covering the Pirates, and including our podcast. And most teams in America and most teams in the United States don't have the coverage we have.
Locally, yeah, we get great coverage from the Greenville media, WNCT, WCTI, WITN, Pirate Radio, 94.3, of course, the Sports Objective podcast. We have Pirate Illustrated, we have Voice of the Colors. So, a lot of great coverage from the local media that a lot of other schools in our conference don't have that kind of media dedicated to them.
And it's mostly pro towns that a lot of our conference guys, affiliates are teams. And so they're fighting, literally, if you're Temple, you're fighting all the schools there locally, all those basketball schools. You've got, and then you have all the pro sports in Philly. So that's a perfect example. And you look at Tulane as another example. Our good friend, Todd Graffanini. But Tulane doesn't get the credit they deserve. But anyway, I just want to mention that.
Speaking of Graf, congratulations to Graf. He is the new voice of the New Orleans Pelicans. So
wow.
That news broke at least a few weeks ago, maybe longer. But
I missed that.
That's something we failed to mention. But congratulations to him.
Well, now will he continue to do Tulane basketball also, or?
No, I think he's strictly with the Pelicans.
But he's no longer with the Green Wave at all. Wow. Okay.
Don't believe so. I'm not.
All right.
We'll see. Wow.
Good for him. He gets to stay in New Orleans at least, and is advancing his career. So hate to see him leave Tulane and the American, but glad to see him get to move on to the NBA.
All right. Well, that's a tidbit I didn't know. And how about you want to talk now about I can talk about the media all day, but we're not going to. Let's talk about our Pirates 2020 class. There's a lot of great breakdown and a lot of cool stuff to talk about there.
Yeah, Coach Houston and the staff are putting together a tremendous class. It's 19 commitments thus far, and we do expect to sign 25 come December. But of those 19, some of the numbers, 11 of those on the defensive side of the ball, 8 on offense, and then just the breakdown in terms of states represented. You have 5 from North Carolina, 3 from South Carolina, 3 from Virginia, 2 from Florida, 2 from Washington, D.C., and then you have 1 each from Maryland, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and New Jersey. So 8 states, and then also Washington, D.C. Represented. So, like he said, he and his staff would spread out up and down the East Coast, starting in North Carolina, and then moving on from there, and they've certainly done that thus far.
Yeah, he's doing a great job recruiting, and some big-time players signed and taking care of some key positions. So it's good to see him and his staff, and that should only get better. I mean, he's doing this in year 1. It'll be interesting to see how good it gets over his time here.
And a guy that I wanted to mention, Dave and Kyle, is the most recent commitment, 6'4", 190-pound wide receiver, Jakari Caldwell, out of Northwestern High School in Rock Hill, South Carolina. He didn't have a ton of offers thus far, but he did have an offer from Illinois, and I don't recall the other, but he did have that one P5 offer. And then another. This is more speculation at this point. But while we're on wide receivers, a guy by the name of Audi Omatosho, and he's from Plano, Texas, and originally went to UCLA. Redshirted as a freshman in 2016, but then suffered an injury and had to miss the 17 and 18 seasons due to injury. And this is, like I said, pretty much speculation at this point because there are multiple UCLA wide receivers in the transfer portal. But it's seeming like Audi could be the guy. He's a 6'2", about a 200-pound, from what I recall, and he would be a grad transfer. But I think he would be in the situation that Kurt Benkert was in at UVA, where he would be a grad transfer that would have 2 years. So that would be nice. And he is a former 4-star. In addition to UCLA, he had offers from the likes of Oklahoma State, TCU, Arkansas, Texas Tech, Iowa, Miami, and others.
Typically, a receiver isn't a position you miss on very much. Not like a lineman or a running back or even or certainly a quarterback. Typically, that's a position that's you can miss on a kid not realizing how good he is. But typically, if a kid's highly recruited as a receiver, typically it's going to translate at least to getting on the field level. So if he gets back healthy, he should be a nice addition. Yeah,
I really think so. And that's one of those things, like you said, it's tough to tell whether he was truly missed on because of his injury situation. Just a kind of a weird deal. So let's catch up with Kristina Parrish, the new director of sports nutrition at East Carolina, and let's talk to her right now.
Well, we have a new day, a new era, if you will, when it comes to Pirate athletics. And Bubba, I know that maybe she doesn't because she's brand new to ECU, but on message boards and on fifth quarter call-in shows and all kinds of post-game shows, we always heard, including former coaches, we heard the 2 words, training table, training table, training table. Well, thank goodness we don't have to hear about that anymore because we have a very special guest now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, the product on the field hasn't been what folks would have liked over the last several years. So some of the big picture items such as that kind of came to the forefront. And so we're very excited to have with us the first ever Director of Sports Nutrition at East Carolina, Kristina Parrish.
Hello.
Hey, welcome in. We're very excited to have you on because first out of the gate, can you give Pirate Nation a little bit of your background of where you've been, and then obviously we're going to talk about. We're very excited to have you on campus and with the athletes.
Yeah, sure. I'm very excited to be here as well, and I'm happy to talk to you guys today. So I'm from Indiana. I did my undergrad in nutrition and exercise phys at Purdue University, and then after that I went to grad school in Illinois, and then I was a sports nutrition intern at the University of Virginia for a year. And then I was at Rutgers University as an intern sports dietitian for about 6 months before I came here.
So glad to have you here. And I know that we're just thrilled to have John Gilbert as the Director of Athletics. Can you talk about, I know he's your boss, but there are a lot of people in Pirate Nation just tickled to death with the new administration. Can you talk about him and working with him so far?
Yeah, it's been really great. Everyone here, actually, coaches, administration, has been very helpful and very supportive of everything I've been doing. So that makes my job a little easier. You know, I don't have to kind of fight for proving myself or proving how nutrition can help the athletes. Everyone kind of is on board with that, so that allows me to kind of just take the wheel and do whatever I need to do to get these athletes fueled.
I know I'm from the old school. I graduated in '95. I'm a bit older than you guys, for you and Bubba. But back in the day, I would see. I'm a graduate of East Carolina, and I would see the football team like at the Golden Corral, or they'd be at the same buffets I went to. Kristina, that's not in 2019. That's not a good idea, right?
No, it is not. You won't catch them doing that anymore.
All right, Bubba, I know that you had some questions that you wanted to ask Kristina, and I'll jump in as well.
Kind of along those same lines, it's what Dave was mentioning. Obviously, athletes, no matter what the sport, and they have different needs, and you have to be smart with how you fuel your body. So talk a little bit, obviously, we'll start off with football because that's what's on a lot of Pirate fans' minds, but then we'll branch off, into some of the other sports. So right now, when we're in that preseason phase, talk a little bit about what you do with East Carolina football and some of the meals those guys are eating.
Yeah, so a lot of our focus right now, since they're in preseason camp, is making sure that, A, they're staying hydrated because it's hot out there, and, you know, their first practice with full pads is tomorrow, so that adds to losing all that water weight. So we want to make sure they stay hydrated and then make sure they're eating enough so they're not losing weight during camp, which is a big issue a lot of guys do have because they're training so hard and a couple times a day even.
And that's something maybe Kyle and I can do. Bubba's in pretty good. I'm actually in shape, but there's about 20, 30 pounds I can lose. So I'm out there at practice. I'll tell you one thing. I don't know if I could make it maybe 30 minutes at the most. I don't know. Bubba's in very good shape. I'm sure he can make it through the whole practice. And I don't know about Kyle. He might make it through the first, 5 minutes?
Yeah. Now, Dave, kind of going back to that's what I guess I finished up in the fall of 2004 with my college football career. But like Dave's saying, I remember even back in those days when you would have your two-a-days, which aren't as prevalent now, but you would have your 2 or 3-a-days even. And after each one of those practices, when you return to the locker room or the football facility, you would have to weigh in and weigh out after every practice, and like you're saying, to make sure you're not dropping too much weight. And then I believe it's like 20 ounces of water was recommended per pound lost.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
We still do that now too. We weigh them before practice and right after practice to make sure that they are rehydrating appropriately.
I remember in one of those practices where it was mid-90s and just a scorcher, that's what I lost, something like 7 or 8 pounds. And so needless to say, I was chugging water the rest of the day.
Yeah, I bet.
But another question I had for you, and talk about your involvement with some of the other sports. Because I mean, we have volleyball getting started, women's soccer, et cetera. So talk about your involvement and what you'll be doing with each of those sports.
Kind of along the same lines as football, since they'll be getting ready, doing their season camp, making sure they're fueling appropriately, getting enough calories and protein to support the training that they're doing. Even with them, too, they can have some issues with losing weight during camp, and we don't really want to see that right before going into a season because that could mean a lot of that is muscle loss.
Kristina, I had a question because I know one of the sports that we have a big tradition in, and it seems to be so grueling, so taxing as far as calories are concerned, is swimming and diving. Can you talk about, is that something different? Do they have a different kind of diet for a sport that's so strenuous?
Yeah. So a lot of it is nutrition's very individualized, so a lot goes into it, even within the sport, with there being, different events in swimming or with other sports, different positions.
Right.
So meeting one-on-one with the athletes is the best way I can kind of help them. But if I were doing like a team talk for swimming, though, that would be more, making sure they're getting quality calories throughout the day, making sure they're eating every 3 to 4 hours. They don't ever go a long period of time without putting foods into their stomach.
As far as can you talk about I know one of the things that I'd heard is I want to get you're the expert, not me. As far as the football team is concerned, or any of these teams, are they coming to do they go to a dining hall? Do you have a certain meal or a menu already prepared and they come and eat there? How does it work so we know that the guys, the men and women at ECU are on a strict diet or the diet that you have for their sport or individually?
Right. Right now we don't have a dining facility for all of the athletes.
Okay.
Like you had mentioned earlier about training tables, that's something we are moving towards, but it's a work in progress because we have to find a facility for that.
Right.
But for the teams that are in season, a lot of times they will provide meals, either catered meals or they'll go eat at the dining hall. Like, for instance, that's what volleyball is doing during their preseason camp. So what I'll do is either look at the menus and kind of guide them that way on what they should be choosing, but not necessarily creating the menu.
That's certainly one. I know one question Bubba had, so I'll steal it. Bubba, you told me ahead of time. Well, you had so many. I wanted to ask you, Kristina, as far as you were talking about individuals, and I know some of them maybe they need to, a football player, if a coach comes to you and says, hey, we need to gain, this guy needs to gain 25, 50 pounds. How do you go about that? Is that something that is, I know there's a plan, everybody's body's different, but how do you go about that?
Right. So to gain that much weight, I could not get them there by the start of this season. But of course, if you have an incoming freshman who needs to gain that weight, that's definitely doable because they have a lot of time. Right now, what we do with the guys that are trying to gain a lot of weight is I make them weight gain shakes for twice a day, basically. So after practice in the morning and then in the afternoon, if they have lift or after their afternoon team meeting. So we do that, and then I also make them snack bags that are about 1,200 calories that they have to eat by the end of the day, and then we do that every day.
That sounds like I know that, and those of us that need to lose the weight, if there's athletes that come in and they're out of shape as far as, God forbid if they are, but if they're maybe they're 25 or 50 pounds overweight, I know that you want that to be a gradual process. How long I guess each person's different, but how long would that take to take the weight off?
Right. So for healthy weight loss, where we're, trying to preserve the muscle, we aim for about a pound or 2 a week. Any more than that, then you're kind of dipping into the muscle, or it could be fluid loss. So we try to keep it right there, no more than 2 pounds a week. And with that, I'm kind of giving them healthier options or kind of exchanging whatever foods they are eating for healthier options. Lower calorie snacks, focusing on fruits and vegetables, picking water over Powerade, things like that.
Kristina, obviously we have a new director of strength and conditioning, John Williams, and so talk about your relationship with him from the standpoint of you guys communicating and making sure you're on the same page and working towards the common goal.
Right. Working with him has been great, and my office is actually in the weight room, so that makes communication really easy because I can kind of just pop over there whenever I need to. But he's been really good about catching me up on the guys and the athletes on where their weights have been and where their weights are now and where we want their weights to be, since he's kind of got a little more time on me with starting in January, I believe. So he kind of has a background knowledge on them more than I do, starting just in June. It's been really good, and communication is a really big piece of it because he might know things I don't know, I might know things he doesn't know, so we touch base regularly.
Kristina, being the first, you're the pioneer as far as being the director of sports nutrition. What is your goal? What is the vision, I guess, for, say, like when you have we have tremendous coaches now, we have the athletic administration's tremendous, including when you have the likes of Ryan Robinson and John Gilbert and all the folks there, and now you're on board. What is your vision? Where do you think we'll be as far as when it comes to your neck of the woods of sports nutrition? Where do we need to be to compete for championships like everybody in Pirate Nation wants to be?
Right. That's an excellent question. I think a lot of it will take a lot of time.
Yeah.
You know, getting the fueling station ready, getting training tables ready, getting the equipment that people haven't even thought about, like I would need for nutrition. For example, getting a way to measure body fat and muscle mass, things like that. Once we get that all in place, I think that will put us above and beyond some of these other schools that might not have a sports nutrition program, or maybe they only have a part-time dietitian. I think that'll really give the athletes the competitive edge to win those championships.
And along those lines, what do you need as far as if there are donors listening right now, or there's things that we can mention to the administration, or there are certain needs? I mean, I know that there's a whole bunch of laundry list of stuff, but those, when you said with the BMI, is that something that's very expensive, or how?
Yeah, it runs around $11,000 for the DIA scale.
All right, Bubba, you got that. Bubba, you got that, and he's got that in his mattress.
Yeah. But Dave, the final question I would have is, a moment ago, Kristina, you were talking about how you work hand in hand with John Williams, Director of Strength and Conditioning. One of the things you often hear about, performance-enhancing drugs and things that you may buy at GNC or elsewhere that some athletes make the mistake of thinking they're legal just because they're sold at a GNC. So do you work with John Williams as far as educating the athletes on that list of things? Because I know it's quite lengthy. How does that work?
Absolutely. So whenever I'm talking to any of my teams for the first time, one of the main things that I make sure to bring up is if they are taking any supplements that I need to know about it. So I'll usually have them snap me a picture of the label and the front of the product so I can look them up and kind of give them my recommendations based on that, as well as educating the athletes that any substance they put into their bodies that isn't food is their responsibility. So I can recommend them to not take a product, but obviously they're adults and they can do so if they choose, but I am not responsible for a failed drug test, and I know that I did my part in educating them.
Right, and it sounds like, Kristina, overall, with you being the first, that we need patience and time, and just like the cliche goes, Rome wasn't built in a day, so it's going to take time to, I'm sure, to set up your plans and set up everything with the players and coaches. It seems like it's an overwhelming task, but we're very excited that you're at East Carolina and Greenville. Before we let you go, is there what do you think about Greenville? And there are places you've been so far, maybe some restaurants or shops that you like?
I haven't had too much time yet to do. I've been given a laundry list of restaurants that I do need to get to, but Haven't really made it out yet, but I know there's a lot of good. I've heard the fried chicken around here is really good, and the seafood. So those are on my list to get to eventually, probably after football season.
Yeah, I was going to say
all those things you don't want the players eating.
Yeah.
So no Parker's barbecue for the players or any of the barbecue places around town.
Maybe after a win.
Moderation.
Yeah, everything in moderation.
Kristina, thank you so much for coming on with us. You're great, and we're excited to having you here, and something that a lot of Pirate fans and Pirate Nation wanted for a long time, so it's definitely a big step in the right direction, and anything that you need. I know Bubba and Kyle is working for a living. He can't be with us right now, but I know from everybody here at the Sports Objective and in Pirate Nation, if anything you need, let us know about it so we can help you out.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Kristina. I think she's going to Parker's Barbecue. What do you think, guys? After the game, a win, a celebration, we can definitely have her take the team to Parker's.
I didn't get a chance to participate in that interview, so but I'm betting she doesn't eat a lot of Parker's Barbecue. Being a nutritionist, I'm assuming she eats a lot of healthy foods that you don't find at Parker's. Nothing against Parker's.
No, not at all. We love Parker's. They make a great sponsor, but they actually. She did say that if they won a game, that she could probably take them there. But I joked in the interview, Kyle, that she. That back in my day, that the football players used to go to buffets like Golden Corral, different places. You'd see them around town, and they can't do that now.
Well, that's good. That's good. They're getting the kind of food they need, and we have the quote unquote training table now, and they're getting properly nourished. So that's good to hear, and it's something that we should have had years ago.
Talk about the football camp practice number 4. I think Coach Houston is very pleased today. He had a really good practice today. He didn't say that just to say that, like we used to hear from the previous coach. It was certainly he's not going to be phony. He's not going to be fake, and that's what I like about him. Straight shooter. The guys are. I think the great thing about it, the guys are starting to see that. There is a method to his madness. He's a winner, 80-25 overall coming into East Carolina. So championship, a national runner-up, and he also had the Division II runner-up with Lenore Ryan. So the guy knows how to win. And one of the Citadel, as we talked about, they know that, and they're starting to. The word here's the kicker, guys. I really believe in fall camp, you're starting to see guys really start to buy in, something the previous coach never could get. The players to buy in, and I think that's huge.
Well, the previous coach won't sell in a damn thing to buy into, but it'll the buy-in's got to be there, and practice number 4, you get the first couple of days under your belt. This is about the time the guys should start clicking. They haven't hit that wall yet where it's oh my God, we ain't there yet. So they're practice number 4, the next few practices all should be solid.
Yeah, a couple of things that really stood out to me about the most recent practice and then just overall is one, and we had heard, from Coach Houston over the last few months, and I mean, I guess going back to signing day when we heard that Demetrius Mooney was going to be joining our program, we heard about his dynamic playmaking ability and how he was someone that was expected to come in and potentially compete for playing time as a true freshman, and that certainly seems to be the case as he's right there behind Darius Penix and getting a lot of reps in practice. And then also in the secondary, and so we're going to have at least a couple freshmen, probably 3 freshmen. Maybe even, I think there may even be a 4th, but you have the likes of Jaquan McMillan and Jawan Powell and others who are really looking strong at corner and giving guys like Mike Witherspoon and Colby Gore run for their money.
Yeah, I think this guys, we know that seeing these recruiting classes,
that they literally go from some of them are really good and then some are not. Some of them are in the middle. But I think this 2019 class, judging by listening to Coach Houston, if you listen to him after practice, day after day, we have done so far for the fall camp, practice number 4, I should say, and these freshmen are really, really coming. I think Coach Houston has been really surprised just listening. If you listen to him talk, I think he's really surprised at how they responded to him and his challenges. And I think it goes back to guys that these guys are not only tremendous talent, but they're coming from great programs. C.J. Johnson is coming from C.H. Conley, Zy Everett from Farmville Central. You look at Travion Freshwater. I assume he's going to do the academic red shirt, but still, they're coming. These guys in the 252, for example, are tremendous players. Plus, in the Mark Lindsay interview, how the politics of going from a 4-star to a 3-star because you picked East Carolina. If they picked Penn State or Alabama, they would have been a 4-star. So, including Holton Ahlers, he's definitely a 4-star guy. And they made him a 3-star just because he picked East Carolina. But that's a whole other podcast, as they say. But you look at these guys, and by the way, Bubba, I know one of the stats you saw, Kyle, I don't know if you saw it, but how about this? Out of all the players on the team, 13 are from the 252 area code.
Yeah. That's what you hear Coach Houston and his staff talk about putting up a fence around eastern North Carolina, starting with the Greenville area and branching out pretty much on I-95 east. And so that's awesome to hear that the 252 is so well represented on our current roster.
Had some news from John Gilbert the other day. Evidently, with scheduling, it looks like we are going to we're in the talks with scheduling a Power 5 opponent, starting with the 2022 or the 2023 season, Bubba.
Yep.
Is it the 2022 or the 2023 season, Bubba?
Was 2022. Sorry, I dropped for a minute.
Okay. Anyway, so it looks like we're going to try to schedule a Power 5 opponent, starting with the 2022 season. My speculation, if it's going to be North Carolina, is they have an open date in 2022, and Gilbert said that's when the series would start. With an opening on their schedule, I would be willing to bet nice chunk of change is going to be the Tar Heels.
Yeah,
and hey, but what about your buddy Mac Brown?
What about my buddy Mac Brown?
Well, he doesn't want us to schedule Power 5 teams. I mean, he doesn't want us to schedule Group of 5 teams, right?
Well, technically, he didn't say that.
He didn't say that, but he wants us to be separate, right?
Well, he thinks we should have our own playoff. I don't know what he's worried about it for. North Carolina has as much chance of making the playoffs as we do.
That's true.
So Mac needs to get in reality. You know, realize he ain't in Texas anymore. Realize this ain't 2005. Quit smoking the hopium, and get in touch with reality. That Tar Heel football sucks donkey balls. He's taken over a terrible program, and he ain't making no damn playoffs. I don't know what he's worried about. Who's in the playoffs for? He needs to be worried about who his opponent's going to be in the Dr. Pepper Bowl or whatever bowl they are going to go to when in year number 3 they finally get to 7-5.
Wow. All right. You all right? You feel better now?
I'm good.
All right. Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I can't believe that he would say that. Carolina, UNC is a basketball school. Everybody knows it. I mean, you hear from Tar Heel fans all the time that care about Carolina football, and they're just embarrassed because they don't have the atmosphere that East Carolina does. Let's just say that. And you could probably go in there. NC State has a better atmosphere. I mean, could you argue that maybe what team would have the worst atmosphere in North Carolina as far as a home football game at Division I?
What?
I mean,
in North Carolina?
Yeah. Who has the worst?
I would say Duke.
Well, Duke did used to have the worst, but now with Cutcliffe, it's a little bit better. They're running closer to Carolina now. I don't know.
Duke or Carolina, one of the two.
Yeah. both basketball schools.
I mean, I would say Wake also probably does great. It's either
Yeah.
who has the better atmosphere. The argument would be East Carolina, NC State, or Appalachian.
Appalachian State, right?
So I would say Wake's atmosphere in recent years has been better than Duke or Carolina's. Yeah. Duke's been winning more, but I don't know their atmosphere is any good.
Well, it's a little bit better. It's a little bit louder. Before it was so bad because the away team had more people there and cheering louder. It wasn't very loud, but it was embarrassing. But Cutcliffe has at least got rid of that track and brought the fans down closer. It's a little bit louder in there, but not. I would agree that it would have to be between those two. And but anyway, my point was just simply that he has no business talking bad about Group of 5 teams. He can talk whatever he wants to, I'm sure, but he's just taking a paycheck for a few years, and then they're going to get another coach in there anyway. But I was disappointed to hear him say that because I don't think people in college football get how important Group of 5 and Power 5 schools together are, and how big of a tournament and a playoff they could have. It's just so ridiculous. But I don't want to spend a whole lot of time ranting and raving about that. People know how I feel about.
Well, there's plenty of time to talk about that during the off season.
Right.
We're gearing up for Pirate football, and so it's time to focus on this season.
Well, I'll tell you one thing: if we play Carolina, Chapel Hill, or Greenville, let me do my Kyle. We'll beat their ass. So
3 in a row.
Yeah, exactly. And when you have Mike Houston or Mac Brown, I mean, no offense, Mac, but his days are done. He's taking a $3 million, whatever is it? How many millions of dollars that Carolina's paying?
A lot.
And a lot of money for a few years.
They couldn't beat us when Scotty Montgomery was here. So
enough said. Drop the mic. Anyway, that was that. We had. I want to thank everybody for listening to the 50 Pirates in 50 Days. We had a huge response. A lot of people on telling us personally, emailing us, social media, message boards, people that don't know us. Thank you so much for listening to that. We had a record-breaking month last month in July, over 6,000 listens, and growing all the time. And I know Bubba, we're very excited. Talked to Dana last week, by the way, folks. She's going to come on our podcast to talk about the Sports Objective Pirate Cruise. We're hoping that Bubba will come on the cruise with us, come on board the Love Boat. And next year, it's July the 15th or 19th. We're going to have a great time. And I tell you what, the people are going to be excited when they go from Charleston to the Bahamas. We're going to have lots of cool stuff on there, including a private party. Dana's setting up for us with Carnival, so we'll have a couple hours where we can be pirates, have pirate beverages, mingle, have a good time. We're going to have a private podcast where we're going to record. You can be a part of it. And maybe they can, some pirate fans from Pirate Nation can be on the show with us. There'll be a lot of, who knows, we'll have a lot of fun for sure, right?
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun next July when we go on the Sports Objective Cruise from Charleston to the Bahamas.
One of me and Kyle's, I don't know about Bubba, it's one of my favorite cities in all of America. Charleston's absolutely gorgeous, and the people are very friendly. I love Charleston. So,
yeah, I love Charleston as well. I hadn't been there in quite a while, but went there multiple times growing up, like middle school, high school. Folly Beach is right there at Charleston, and so it was a lot of fun and a great place and a ton to do.
So make sure you can call Dana right now, folks. Simply call 919-830-4161, 919-830-4161. Give her a call, and you can also just Google Dana's Global Travel. She'll hook you up. She'll take care of you. And right now, she is doing a great thing for us. If your money's tight, because a lot of us have had summer vacations and stuff, well, get this. You only have to put $25 down per person right now and let her know you want to be a part of the Sports Objective group. She'll put you in the group, and then you can come back in a month or so when your money's recovered a little bit and pay the difference for your deposit. So where she's offering that right now to help out Pirate Nation for pirates to be on a ship. I mean, who else would not? We could be on a ship. We're pirates. So come on at 919-830-4161. Call Dana. and set up your that next year is going to be fantastic. A lot of people are talking about it, and we don't want the rooms to sell out. So go ahead and call again, 919-830-4161. Had a chance to talk to Dave Gervecki today. He's going to be on our next show. Looking forward to releasing that. He was tremendous, former baseball player with the Padres and Giants, and unfortunately lost his left arm to cancer. If you don't know the story, Google it. It's just a touching story. His faith is tremendous. He was tremendous with us, and I have a special connection to him because my great uncle was the manager of the Giants during that time, and he talks about that and so much more. So make sure you listen to that. And now, Bubba, we've got many more 50 for 50s coming up.
Yeah, we do. We're a little over the halfway point with that series, and all those, remember, are archived on SoundCloud and YouTube, so go back and check those out if you've missed them. Some good listening, and then some of the ones we have headed your way, we'll be catching up with several players from the Clarence Stasevich era. When we talked to players from a variety of eras thus far, but none thus far who had played for Coach Stass. So that'll be an awful lot of fun, because that was a very successful era in Pirate football.
Didn't you tell me they were? Was it 30 points away from being 30-0? What was that you were telling me?
Yes, 1963 through 1965, we had 3 straight 9-1 seasons, and where we went to what was called the Eastern Bowl, and then 2 straight Tangerine Bowls.
Yeah,
that's a little more heard of, but with those seasons, all of our losses were close. We had one loss in one of those seasons that was by 14. The other 2 were like, I guess it was, actually it wasn't even by 14, but because it was 14 points total that we were from being, instead of 27-3, which is still remarkable, to 30-0.
In fact, before Coach Logan, he was the most successful coach, right, as far as wins, if my memory serves me right. Stass was.
Well, I'm trying to recall. I know Pat Dye was up there, but in terms of, Logan's win percentage was nowhere close to Dye or Stasevich, but with Coach, and I'm not saying that to downplay Coach Logan's success, because it's tough to compare eras, but Coach Logan, his winning percentage is right there around 54-55%.
Still a big winner, and certainly, I tell you what, guys, if we can get Coach Houston to stay here for 4 or 5 years, which I think he'll do at least, you're going to see some win totals like that. It's great to see Stass, and a lot of these guys we have come on, they always talk about how it hurts them to watch because they won so many games here, and then to see them watching games now, that's why they say it's not Pirate football. And so Coach Houston's working hard. Well, folks, we're going to be at practice every day. There's practice. We're going to be there. We're doing everything we can to be there. And well, for next time, we'll obviously keep listening to the practice reports on SoundCloud. We'll have that, and obviously the 50 for 50 Pirates in 50 Days is on SoundCloud and YouTube. The podcast is everywhere. For Kyle from the Grange and Bubba Rosenbaum, I'm Dave Richmond for the Sports Objective Podcast.
You've been listening to the Sports Objective Podcast. Join us next time as the guys will be objective, and the objective is sports.